What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I want to talk about the paints, the landscapes, and more specifically the best places to use the paints for everything. So I made a video a while ago talking about what each spot does and like what are all the treasure items, but this time I want to go talk about it in terms of which spots use paints, or the landscape points as they call it, the fastest. Because that's the most important part. You want to be grinding as fast as possible and using the points as much as you can, because that means you have a higher chance of getting the thing. It's kind of like Agris, how you want to use Agris slower, but landscape points is you want to use that fast just because, well, you're going for a treasure item. So yeah, I'll leave a link in the description to the video talking about what each treasure item does and my experience with it. But today, we're just going to go down the list. It's kind of like a, where is it? Landscape. And I'm just going to talk about all of these and my experience grinding basically all these spots. Basically, everything here is a 300 plus AP spot, which is admittedly more endgame. But some places are faster to grind than others. And let's talk about it. I'll try to tell you a little bit about the silver per hour as well. And yeah, my experience of, let's just go down the list for all of these spots. All right. So, Akhman Temple. This one is part of the Histria, or like not Akhman and Histria for the compass piece. And I would say if you're using landscape points here, it's actually pretty fast. There's a lot of density here. That means there's a lot more enemies and they're more or less easier to kill. So the thing is, a lot of these spots are tower spots, which are generally kind of better than non-tower spots. But overall, Akhman is not a high AP requirement spot, so that means generally most people will be overcapped and grinding faster here. Akhman, in terms of silver, maybe like 1 bill an hour, maybe more depending on how many debos you get and other accessories. Pretty decent. Most people will probably not be grinding here as much. And to give you an idea, Zephyros Castle, the highest end grind spot right now, I use about 5,000 to 6,000 landscape points an hour, whereas like places like Pilaku Jail or Sulfur Mine, I'm using like 8,000 to 9,000 an hour. So yeah, more is better. So Akhman Temple. The only bad thing about this spot is actually getting there, because it's in the middle of nowhere in the desert. Well, like it's easy to get there. It's just you have to go out of your way to do it. So, Ethereum Castle is actually a pretty decent spot in terms of, you know, clear speed and landscape points. In terms of silver an hour, it's not that great. But like if you are barely meeting the requirement, let's look at it in terms of what is the AP requirement. So first of all, Akhman is just straight up 300 entry level. Ethereum is a little bit higher. You're going to be using a little bit more paint or landscape points, which is actually a good thing. But in terms of silver an hour, for, you know, the amount of that, it's not so good, because it's like the entry level spot in Adania, the first place you go. And quite honestly, if you're going to Adania early on, you want to, like, this is the gear score you need to be able to do the weekly bosses, which is the number, like, that's a hard requirement. These wand crystals, as good as they are, it's just like, you would rather grind another spot anywhere else that gives more silver, and, you know, just get gear and then go to like Nymphomare Castle, and then that would be like significantly better. But, you know, some people like it. If you get an accessory, it's a good hour. If you don't get any accessories here, then it feels really bad. So in terms of landscape points, it's good. Ash Forest. Now there's 3 different versions. Ash Forest as in base, D1 and D2, Dekia 1 and 2. Honestly, nowadays, Dekia 2 doesn't feel that bad. I made a video of this a couple of years ago when it first came out, and it was actually scary, even if you had full Tet Fallen Gods and everything. This was way before Adania came out, but you actually had to have a lot of gear, and even then it was still dangerous. Nowadays, if you have like duo to try armors, it'll be fine. But it's actually it's not as good as you would think it is, because you think there's a lot of enemies to kill over here, which is true, but they don't like group up as easily. And so if you're not playing a big AoE class, your landscape point usage isn't as bad. But if you're just grinding here because you like it, Ash Forest is actually a very good spot in terms of silver. There's a lot of important things you want to get, Dekia artifacts being high priority if you're a PvPer, and obviously the merchant ring, which I would say this one is the easiest of the 5 of the merchant ring pieces, next to, what is it, Crypt of Resting Thoughts. But yeah, overall, Dekia Ash Forest 2 is probably the one you want to aim for. D1 and regular are kind of irrelevant, but if you're just now getting into it and you just want the merchant ring piece and you don't have like 345, you're either doing base Ash Forest or Dekia 2. Dekia 1 is just kind of not that good, I'm gonna be honest. So yeah, just aim for either base or D2. Kadri Ruins. Now I have a little bit of time, maybe in the recent month I did like 2 hours just to see. It's not bad. It seems like a lot, but since there's mechanics in the spot, so Dekia Kadri, without spoiling too much, you kill enemies, there's a white and red half circle, you have to be in the right one, so it's like a lot of positional, and it's okay. Like, you don't use as much as you think you do here. It's probably around like 6,000-7,000. So either way, if you're at 330, there are better spots to be at. City of the Dead is just not really a good spot. Kind of how we were talking about like Akhman. It's, if you're going for this, you're here for exclusively Origins, Essences, because those are expensive, Limbo boxes, and of course the telescope piece. But there are multiple ways of getting this exact telescope piece. So like this one is the cheese wheel, as they'll call it. You can exchange like a Vodkin piece if, let's say, you've grinded Histria in the past for a while and you have that one you can direct exchange like 1-to-1. So consider this one like a free piece, and then the other one is the spot exclusive. So City of the Dead is a different spot, like different type of spot, because the mechanics of the area is a little bit different. So you kind of like all the Ulakita areas or spots mostly, you kill the one with the green name tag, the Visionary, and then it debuffs all the other enemies around the area. That's when you do the big damage to it. So basically, you burst one enemy, then you drop like 1 or 2 skills and everything dies. So landscape point usage, actually decent. Spot itself, not so good. Crescent Shrine and Dekia. This one is very equivalent to Kadri Ruins. It's just more that it's out of the way because you have to go into the desert, and yeah, it's like it's farther away. People just don't want to do it. But so if I were to recommend either of these, just go to Kadri Ruins because you don't have to be in the desert, and points is about the same. Like, I guess it really just depends on your clear speed, but it's not the worst, not the best, just like kind of in the middle in my opinion. Crypt of Resting Thoughts. This spot is not good for landscape points. However, if you're going for the merchant ring itself, this spot is probably right next to Ash Forest in terms of the easiest to get in terms of time. Like, let's say the average for a piece is a certain amount of time. I think I got my Crypt of Resting Thoughts piece in about maybe 30-ish hours, and that wasn't too bad. So if you're grinding here, you're doing it for this piece in particular. You're not really going for the other ones like alongside it because it's not really that fast. But Crypt of Resting Thoughts, you probably won't be spending too much time here. Cyclops Land, this is actually one I did not test since landscape points came out. But in terms of like clear speed, like from my experience like years ago, it goes by pretty quickly, actually. There's just waves of enemies, and then the Cyclops comes out, and then you repeat it. There's a lot of density in terms of that. So, gear requirement, entry level spot. Well, entry level as in like with landscape points. So, yes, this one's not too bad. There's no treasure items that connect with it, but I mean, it's okay. People are I don't know. Back in terms of silver, you would have grinded this spot for Dawn earrings back in the day when these were like 320 million each, and you would get like a couple an hour, which was always nice. Nowadays, with Sovereign and Karazad being a thing, basically anything that's not a Debro accessory is kind of irrelevant. So yeah, I wouldn't really grind here, to be honest. Even the treasure items not really worth too much these days. And if you're here, Cyclops Land is good for sealed black magic crystals, but that's not really the topic here. All right, so Dark Seekers. This spot is pretty good for basically everything. In terms of landscape points, I would say it's a pretty high up there. Maybe like 8 to 10k an hour, depending on your clear speed. And how many like packs you can do. So like, you know how there's a group of 2 of them, right? And then there's like one set here, one set here. If you could do a 3 spawn cycle, then you're doing really good. A lot of black magic crystals drop here as well, and you know how we're talking about this in City of the Dead. You can get this one here too as well, and a bunch of other essences and origins. This is actually a very good spot, so yeah, would recommend. This one is good for everything. Agris, I guess Kabuas are, you know, everyone still needs them, but they're not like 10 bill each. And the Flame of Resonance, I remember when those were 10 bill each. Not anymore, they're not. Okay, so yeah, Dark Seeker is very good. You can use a lot of, it's a good spot for Agris and Landscape as well. Dokubi Forest, this one is very limited because it is a tower spot. And although it is good silver an hour, I'm not sure how fast you would be able to use landscape points here, simply because you're limited by mechanics, like that one ball mechanic that you have to push the things, and then you have to wait for the Duoxini boss to do the thing. And so, yeah, this one feels a little bit slower in my opinion, but if you're just going here for silver and everything, I would say that's pretty decent. Golden Pig Cave. This one, ever since Edania came out, I think Golden Pig Cave kind of fell off, because remember how the Fortunate Cave or the Golden Cave, whatever, was open for like 1 or 2 hours a day every day, and then now it's open for like 8 to 10 hours a day every day, simply because everyone's just grinding Edania. So in terms of clear speed, there's not too many. It's not a dense spot, so in my opinion, Fortunate Pig Cave is good for silver, but not really for landscape point treasure items. Same thing for here. So there's no point to grinding regular cave when Fortunate was open most of the day anyway. So yeah, just don't do regular, always do Fortunate. Hex Sanctuary. This one is a very high dense spot for enemies, because there's a large, like every group or every pack of enemies, there's like 7 or 8 enemies, and then sometimes you get the wave of like the extra stuff. So Hex Sanctuary, actually a very decent spot. And remember when they made the AP caps for everything, and then Hex was not really included, and I made a video getting like fat trash loot, like almost 100k an hour, and that was a good day actually. But then that's changed. But with that said, I generally like to grind spots that have a connected treasure item with it, so it's like, it feels like you're getting 2 in 1 in a way. But Hex is a very good one. Is it the most silver? No, but in terms of landscape points, this one's actually very good. So yeah, Histria. It feels the same as Akhman. Tower spot as usual. If you were going to use a paint, though, it would probably be at Histria, because going for the Elton piece is significantly harder than going for an Akhman piece if you're going for the compass. And yeah, that's about it. Nymphomare Castle, I would say probably not here, because this is kind of like Jade Starlight Forest in a way. How there's like every tower has 3 different, you know, packs of it. So like you're doing a triangle rotation here, and there's not too many enemies with it. So like clear speed, it's probably not as fast as other spots like Dark Seekers, for example. For a 370 spot, I would recommend going literally anywhere else. So not so good at Nymphomare, but like this spot is not bad. It's just not good for like landscape treasure points. Orbita, I actually got my Sakraya piece at Orbita, like on the first day it came out. So there's actually a lot of enemies here. If you like, even if you're just grinding normally, you're going pillar by pillar, and there's a lot of enemies. So if you can grind Orbita, actually a pretty good one as well. What we're looking for is more enemies in the area, and I think this one is a good one. Orzekia. This spot is arguably one of the top silver spots in the game. However, in terms of landscape points, it's not that good because you're like the distance between enemies and you're fighting like what, 5 enemies at a time. And so like, let's say the enemies killed per hour is not that high here, but the silver an hour is actually pretty good. Plus you get the gems, which you can turn into the end game crystals that everyone uses. So yeah, very high silver spot, arguably like top 3, and that's about it. There's nothing else with it. Like landscape points, grind somewhere else. Pilaku Jail. I did an hour of this the other day, made a video of it, about 8,000 points an hour. This spot is horrible for silver. Like, holy, if you have extra paints left over, you might want to use the Pilaku paints at somewhere else, because this is about like 500 mil an hour. It is not great. So for a 300 AP spot, literally seasonal characters with like 250 AP get more silver an hour here, or like grinding anywhere else that's not here. So if you don't get a Devo, feels bad, and unfortunately we're locked for that one. So I talked about that in the other video about spots that you should use paints on. Pilaku is one of them because the silver an hour for the gear requirement is not that great. Quint Hill, not good. So this spot is good for silver, but we're looking for as many enemies we can kill an hour, and this is like straight opposite of that. You're killing a low amount of enemies, like it says fewer mobs. So just, I can't believe this one is even included. They should like raise the rates if you're gonna use points at certain spots, but I don't think that's how it works. Sulfur Mine, this one's actually pretty good. I use about 8,000 to 9,000. You can stand into mechanics, assuming you are pretty decently geared. You could stand in all the bad mechanics and you probably won't take any damage. And you know, silver is basically double at here than Pilaku Jail, for both of them being the same exact gear score, like 300, 400. Yeah, like if you're gonna use points, use it at Sulfur Mine, because you're at least getting more silver out of it. Even though they're both for map pieces, I'm at 2 out of 4. I have one out of 2 of each of them, so unfortunately we're gonna have to be back at both of them. Tenebrum, this is a very good spot for silver, but in terms of like number of enemies killed, you're very limited because this is a tower spot, and it's like what you do 3 cycles of waves of like what 7 enemies per, like, you know how it's like a circle and you go to the next circle, each 4 pillars, and then the AFK phase. Believe it or not, it's actually not as much as you might think it is. So Tenebrum is a very good spot overall for silver, but not for like treasure item landscape points. That's about it. Dekia Thornwood. This spot fell off in terms of silver like a year ago. Remember when these were 300 mil each and everyone was getting like 7 rings an hour or something because of that? I think the ring drop rate is just higher here. Now they're not. So silver an hour is not like 3 bill anymore. However, the density of enemies is actually pretty high. So I would say Thornwood is a very good spot to use landscape points on. That's about it though. It's sad because I really like Dekia Thornwood. And then, you know, Karazad came out. Tungrad Ruins, very high density spot, and it's not a tower one, so that means you can go as fast as you can play the game. So yeah, Tungrad Ruins, very good spot. It gives a lot of silver. I would say Tungrad's, assuming you were good at playing your class and everything, Tungrad is slightly better than Darkseekers in my opinion, but you have to be like, you know what you're doing. You're not playing a tag character that you started. If you're playing a tag character, you're Dark Seekers is probably better and you don't know what you're doing, but like if you're locked in and you know what to do, Tungrad is significantly better because it's not like limited to 2 packs, and also not you get more of those Puderum bird thingies that spawn here versus the red tides at Dark Seekers, in my opinion. So yeah, I think Tungrad's is better if you're playing on your main. Turos, I actually haven't grinded here in 2 years, so I don't really know, but I assume there's not as many enemies here because this is like Turos was never really a fast spot even back in the day. Ezerheed Highlands, this one is the giant spider thingy, the robot spider. This spot's okay, actually. There's a lot of enemies, and yeah, this one's good. In terms of silver, though, this spot was better when these were 10 bill each, the artifact and the flame. It's less silver now, but I would say it's pretty calm and chill, so definitely recommend it. You guys can also see, because like I've invested a lot of like I've leveled up in nodes in the spots that I've grinded at. And then Zephyros Castle, obviously this is the hardest spot in the game. This makes probably top 3 spots for silver. Obviously you need the gear to be here as well, but it's better than Tenebrom in terms of like amount of enemies killed per hour, or I guess cycle per 15-minute AFK phase. So yeah, if you have the gear, like if you're like within 380-ish and you're thinking, oh, should I grind Tenebrom, or let's say you're 390 plus, right? And you're thinking, oh, should I grind Tenebrom or should I grind Zephyros? Zephyros is significantly better, and that's my opinion. So let's talk about this again. Just quick recap. If you were to grind a spot, I would probably go where there is another treasure item. That way you can try to do 2 in 1. So for example, let's say you were trying to go for the telescope piece. In my opinion, the telescope is actually a really nice one to go for, to be honest. And so if you're going for a telescope piece, you know, probably you could grind here for like Tungrad for the telescope and then turn the landscape points on for your merchant ring piece or literally anything else. So that's my recommendation for all of you. Try to get 2 in 1. It just saves a lot of time overall, assuming average RNG. But other ones that don't have treasure items, I think Zephyros is pretty good. Ezerheed is also pretty good. This one has a treasure. Hex Sanctuary is probably another highlight as well. And you know, the non-tower spots if you can. So some spots are just good for silver overall, but not good for landscape. Some are good for landscape, but not great silver. And that's hopefully what we talked about today. So where have I been grinding? I have been literally grinding Zephyros, Paddock's Island, Olin's. You can't use landscape points in party spots, by the way. That sucks, even though you should be able to. But I understand why you can't. So if I had to recommend anything for all of you guys, Dark Seekers is very good. Hex is decent. Orbita is nice. Sulfur Mine, Tungrad, Ezerheed, and Zephyros Castle also pretty good. Ethereum, this spot's just not good for silver, and you might get a seizure going with it with blinding lights. But yeah, aside from that, that's about it. Hopefully you guys get all your stuff. Good luck with your treasure hunting. And if you want to know what all the treasure items do and which spots I would recommend, let's say you have all those boxes from the events of paints and you're like, which one should I go for? Check that video. I'll leave it in the description. That one's another quick one. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you come back. And I will see you tomorrow. Peace.